My guest today is Dennis J. Henson, who has a career of singular achievement. He is currently the founder and president of Vanguard Marketing and Investments. He is also a renowned leader and educator in the real estate and personal growth industries. Dennis believes that reading every day inspires, motivates, and unlocks hidden potential. In today's episode, Dennis discusses his new book, Real Impact Daily Inspirations. Welcome to Lifeology.
Thank you very much, James, and I appreciate you having me today.
I am looking forward to this as well. I am an avid reader. Ever since I was a little kid, I'd read encyclopedias and dictionaries. And so when I received this pitch, I was like, I can't wait to talk to this individual because this is something I practice myself all the time. For you, when it comes to reading, you were asked a certain question on a podcast that kind of you took you a minute to kind of realize what the answer was. What was the question and what was the answer to it?
Well, I had been teaching real estate investing for a number of years. And because of that, people would invite me on their podcast. My students were so successful. And so one day the host asked, why are your students more successful than other students? And I said, well, I have them change their habits. If they can form success habits, they'll become successful. Then he said, well, what is the one success habit that you would have my audience form in order to become successful more quickly? And I thought for a second and I said, have them form the habit of reading something every day that will encourage them and move them toward their goal, whatever their goal is.
Yeah.
So after the meeting was over, I thought, that was a good answer.
It was, yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if someone could come up with a tool or an app or a book, and then it hit me almost like it just moved me. I can do this. I've been collecting poems and stories and quotes for almost 50 years. I met Jim Rohn early in my career, and he got me to journal. And so every time I heard a really great quote or read a poem or heard someone when I was listening to a CD or a tape, if it was good, I captured it. And I thought, I can put all this together, and in a couple of months, I'll have a book, and people can form the habit of reading regardless of their time. Everyone is so busy.
Yes.
So if you have to in order to form a habit, you have to do it every single time. If you miss one, well, you're forming a habit of not doing it. So with people so busy, if they come in really late and they didn't read that day, they can turn to the back of the book and read a positive quote and go to sleep and think about that all night.
Yeah.
Or if they're in an airport and they have an hour, they can read one of the longer short stories. Or if they're on a layover and they have 3 or 4 hours, I have a list of books in the back. There's over 100 books that are in priority order. So they can take a companion book with them and read for 2 or 3 or how many every hours they have available.
Yeah.
So that eliminates the problem of time, and it helps them form a habit that will truly change their life.
Yes, it will. Yeah, it's research says that on average it takes a minimum of 66 times to do something before it creates a habit. So I like the fact that you, regardless of the length of how long they read, the fact is it's the habit you're inducing, the behavior. So the behavior, the ritual aspect of it. When I was reading there the pitch that was said to me, you like to talk about reading as take it like a sip of wine. You just really enjoy it, as opposed to reading so fast and then we don't really remember things. So I like to hear how you break that down. So if you have a certain period of time, you can read a quote, or you can read a long format, or just other companion books as well. I'm sure that definitely takes away the fear or that thought of I don't have time for this.
Sure. Well, just keep in mind, it's not the quantity of the reading that's important. It's the quality.
Yes.
Back in the 3rd or 4th century, some monks developed a system of contemplation of the scriptures, Lectio Divina. And then a couple of centuries later, it was made into a secular form. But what it involves is you read and then you contemplate, you see yourself in the picture, then you read it out loud, and then you just spend time thinking about it, and you get so much more out of it.
Yes.
So that's kind of how this book it's put together, you don't have to read a lot. I mean, you read a few lines and it's going to touch you, because I didn't have to worry about if the stories were going to be good, because I took good stories to start with.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
all I had to do was a little research and move them around a little bit, maybe put a little twist, make some of them mysteries. And so it turned out to be great. I had 100 stories to start with, and I had to limit them to about 45, which made the book better, because now the stories in it are really, really powerful stories. I mean, they'll reach into your heart and squeeze it, and the tears come down. They seriously will.
People, people don't realize that when we, so you go back to the whole aspect of, we don't have a lot of time. Like, I don't have time to read, I don't have time to do other things. People really realize that a form of meditation, all meditation really is just thinking about something over and over again. That's just really what it is. And so we have what's called a perseverative thought. So perseveration in psychology just means you think about, something loops and loops and loops and loops. And so it's the same concept. So for you, what you do is you take the stories, and you allow the person to focus on that. And in that, to really sit with, what does it mean? And then that's when the meditation happens. That's when those, the ability to think about it over and over. And what does this mean for me? How do I find my identity? How does this make sense for me? And so in that moment, the same concept of what you were talking about with the monks, it's the same thing people can do all the time. And so that's why we always have time to meditate. Which is it more informed meditation, or is it something that we naturally do? When it comes to those different, all those stories, how did you choose between the 100 versus the 42 now? How did you make that? How did you choose which one was better?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I loved all the stories. Obviously, I'd saved them for many, many years. But the ones that I kept had to move you. When I first started to write the book, I reread the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And in a couple of places in there, tears formed in my eyes. It was such a powerful book that I felt the tears swelling up in my eyes. And I thought, if I can write a book and really move people to tears, it'll be a successful book. So when I first started giving this out to have people proofread it, one of the things I asked was, well, what happened when you read this story? Or what did you think of this story? And then I'd say, well, at any point, did you tear up? And they say, oh yeah. When I gave it to my wife, who's really a tough lady. She's Mexican, and nothing moves her much. And I said, well, help me read the book and help me proofread it. And so the next day I said, well, have you read on the book? She said, I couldn't. I said, well, what do you mean you couldn't? She said, I read The Little Girl's Gold, and I just cried and cried and cried. And that was, that's all I could do.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, if it moved her, it's certainly going to move other people. But all of the stories are touching, because they're people who struggled. I mean, they're people that we know now as super successful people, right? Like, Hershey and Lincoln and Disney and Andrew's sisters. They're all super successful.
Yeah.
But I took it from a different angle. I went back and looked when they weren't successful.
Yes.
And where they got knocked down over and over. And in spite of that, they got up again and again and again. And eventually they broke through. And when they do, you can just feel it. You can just feel it. I've read these stories probably 1,000 times, getting the book ready, through formatting, proofreading, finding mistakes and having to change. And when I put it, it's on an audio book. I can listen to the audio, and the tears still roll down my eyes after 1,000 times. You would think that you'd get accustomed to it, but there's some powerful things, and the poems are the same way. And some of the quotes will move you like that.
The whole goal of the book is to what? What do you hope when people read it? What's obviously crying is important, but what does the crying represent for some people?
Well, the purpose of the book is to change people's lives for the better. It's to, if you're sending a rocket ship to the moon, if you're off 1%, you missed the moon hundreds of thousands of miles. Well, your life is the same way. If you can just change the direction of your life a little bit into the direction of where you want to go, you get there so much faster and easier. So the purpose of the book, and I'm in the winter of my life. I
Mhm.
want to leave a legacy, and I
Yes.
want to think, well, at least I left things better than they were when I came. And I think this book is how I'm going to do that.
Mm.
Because a person just getting out of high school or college, just starting their life, if they can decide and determine, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, whatever it
Mhm.
is. If they just read a little bit and contemplate every single day, form that habit, they get there so much faster and
Yes.
learn so much more. Zig Ziglar is one of my favorite people.
Mhm.
And Zig once said, little by little, little becomes a lot. If you just read 20 minutes of a 200-page book every day for a year, you will have read 20 books, which is 19 more than the average person.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That sets you apart. I mean, it
Yeah.
really does. It will change how people look at you, how successful you are, how
Mhm.
you're able to put things together, find money, motivate people. So I think that's a really good thing to implant in a young person.
Yes. One of my favorite quotes is the last person in the race beats the person on the couch. And so it's interesting because this is your own race, your own pace rather. And so if you do something a little bit more the next day and beyond that, it continues to create, like I said, creates this habit and allows you to be the person you want to be. However, we can take the inverse of that and say, if I do something less every single day, well, then I've gone backwards. So my success is now measured based on how I want my success to be. I always tell people how you start your day is indicative of how your day is going to go. And so for me, my morning rituals, I have my mindfulness, my spiritual time. I work out, and then I do the rest of my stuff. And so it's important to incorporate something, so some type of inspiration. So I think this book is wonderful for people to, if they want to do it in the morning or at night, that's totally fine. But I think it's so important because we have to access all parts of who we are. Like I said, our spirit, mind, and body. I don't necessarily mean religion, but just how do I inspire myself when life is going tough? What inspiration do I have? And so the reading the book that you have is going to be really powerful for people, because when they don't have their own inspiration, they can read a book like that, and it helps them realize that if these people can overcome it, I can overcome it as well.
Exactly. One of the things that really makes me feel great is reading the Amazon reviews.
Mm-hmm.
When people say, oh, this book came just at the right time. I
Yeah.
was experiencing problems with my business, and they say, this just pulled me out. Well, that's what I want to hear.
Yes.
And and the Amazon reviews pretty much are all like that. They're really good. I hope everybody will go there and read some
Of
of them.
course. Of course. Yeah.
And I didn't mention when we were doing the show prep, I would like to give everyone who listens in a free ebook. Would that be
Okay.
okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And now, remember, the show syndicates multiple platforms for the future. So as long as the gift is permanent, then yes, that works.
It's absolutely free with no
Okay.
strings.
Perfect.
So if they go to realimpactbook.com, they have to scroll all the way to the bottom where it says podcast attendee
Uh-huh.
and click on that. They put in their email and it's automatically sent to them, and there is no strings. I give them
Perfect.
away to the podcast listeners because I know if they read it and like it, they're going to give it to someone and
Yes, they
change
will.
their life. They're going to give it
Yes.
to a graduate or a niece or nephew or a grandson or even a grandparent. The stories are great for people in nursing homes.
Yes. Oh,
They have
yeah. Makes
nothing
sense.
else to do,
Yeah.
and they just would love these stories.
Yes. I once read where Firestone, Edison, and Ford all lived They all vacationed in Palm Beach, Florida, and I can't imagine, being around those individuals, like just sitting there and just listening. I'm like, oh my gosh. So what people don't realize is that in psychology we have what's called the law of the group. So the law of the group basically means we become the average of the people with whom we associate. And so if I'm
Right.
hanging out with people all the time, and so let's say they're at a level 10 of positivity, and I'm at level 5 of positivity, well, I'm going to level up to 7.5, and they're going to decrease to 7.5. And so it's important to realize that the people with whom we associate, I'm sure they're wonderful people, and if we want more out of life, however that may be, or whatever that may be like, it's important to recognize that we have to level up. And so if we don't have anybody around us that we can think of that demonstrates success, obviously your book is going to be able to help people realize, okay, I don't have these people in my life, but I can read about that and I can level up in that respect. So it's always good to know that even if we want to be successful, success can also be in our emotions. It can be in our thoughts. It can be in our physical, our spirituality, many different aspects of it. So for your version of your book, from what I understand, it's going to be the aspect of how to inspire people to overcome obstacles, to be able to realize that there's more to life than perhaps what their life is showing them at that moment.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of twofold. One is the book is very inspiring,
Mm-hmm.
but the reason for the book is it's a tool to help them form a habit of moving closer to a desire, a goal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, your desires are gifts. They're gifts from God.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't act on your desire, you're turning away the gift.
Mm-hmm.
So when people want to find, well, what's my purpose in life? It's pretty easy to find out because you have these desires. But there are things that get in the way that block you, that
Yes.
say, oh, you can't do this because of the money, you don't have the
Mm-hmm.
contacts, you don't have the education, you don't have this and this and this and this. Well, those are stepping stones, not
Correct.
really blocks.
Yes.
There's something to prove. If I can overcome this and this and this, I can get to whatever it is. Look what Elon Musk has done
Mm-hmm.
in a short life, which just proves you can do that too. Anybody can do anything. Everybody, has the wherewith to reach.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have these burning desires, I don't know, I'm sure you've read Think and Grow Rich,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And all the way through, it says there's this thing. It never just comes down and says, this is the thing. But if you read this book, you're going to find there's this thing that's going to make everything much easier. Well, I'm about to tell you what it is. And here's what it is. It's a burning desire. If you can cultivate and develop a burning desire to do something, then you're halfway there. Well, more than half. You're 90% there. Because with a burning desire, when you get knocked down, it doesn't affect you. You just learn from it. You get up and you move again, and you keep moving until, if you want to be an attorney, you become an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
In the story about Lincoln in the book, he found a set of books about the law. It was about the old English law, and he read the books, and he fell in love with the law, and he started going to trials. And once he went into a courtroom, he felt at home. This is it. This is what. And this person who had less than a first grade education, who was illiterate, his parents were illiterate, he could just barely speak the English language, became one of the greatest lawyers in Illinois, one of the top lawyers, and eventually president of the United States, and one of the greatest orators who ever lived.
Yeah,
and the story just shows you, because he loved reading so much, that he read and read and read, and look what happened. Look what he became. That's a great story. I hope everybody reads it.
Yes. I really appreciate what you're saying. It's in the sense of, if I want to do something, I don't have to figure out how to do it. I just have to focus on the craft that I love. And sometimes people think, well, I don't have the money for this or that, just like you said earlier. But the point is you don't have to worry about the money, because the money isn't yet time. You don't need the money right now. You have to practice whatever it is you love. And then once you embody yourself in that's when the other opportunities, that's when people come. And so I always tell people, if you're trying to figure out how you're going to do the end result, well, you haven't started the first step. And so anytime we make a decision, it's not about do I do it? Yes or no. It's more about, do I have enough information? So if I don't have enough information about what I love, well, let me research that. Let me, Lincoln was reading about the law. He just read and read and read, learned more and more, which then opened up more doors for him. And so it was time for his, for whatever he wanted to do next, it unfolded for him because it was the time, because he put himself to that. I always tell people, there's nothing worse than having an opportunity come to you, but you're not able to walk through that door because you didn't do what you're supposed to do to prepare for that. And so it can be a really unfortunate time. So it is, like you said, important to have these inspirations, to have these things, to always search for more, for your purpose, for your desire, because in that's when you'll find your happiness, your fulfillment. But when that doesn't happen, that's when mediocrity sets in. That's when all these aspects of life are like, oh, now this is okay, but we don't truly find our connection. And so I'm really glad to hear that, obviously you teach these things. I wanted to ask you, though, I've noticed that on the book cover that there is a picture of a lamp. Tell me more about that.
Well, that's kind of a mystery to get people to, what's this book about?
Yeah.
Well, everybody knows the story of Aladdin, the young boy who found an old lamp, and who was cleaning it. He realized it had magical powers, powers that would give him whatever his wish, And if you've read the story, you probably just think, well, it's just a mystical tale. It's an interesting story, but it doesn't really have anything to do with reality. But that's not true. There really is an amulet like that. And it's this book. It's the Real Impact book. It's the amulet. And if you use it the way that it's outlined, you can have anything you want. In the beginning of the book, it says how to use this book. Okay? And it has these steps. And if you follow these steps, then it will change the course of your life, so that whatever it is that you desire, that you really, really want, you'll be able to attain it, because, like you were saying, you don't have the money and all. These things will be attracted to you like a magnet. It's a law of nature, and you can't stop it. Once you head in the direction that you're meant to go into, the money will appear, the education opportunities, the people are attracted to you. That's the secret. That's the book, the secret. And it's true, but so many people reject it. They think, oh, that's, because they don't understand. But if they'll just try it, it's like if you, when you were a little kid and somebody showed you your first magnet, you probably thought, well, that's strange. How does that work? So this book is a conduit to take you from here to wherever you desire to be. And it really does work.
Yes. Going back to the aspect of when we associate with certain people, we become that. And so it's important for all of us to really think about that right now in our own lives. If you're seeing progress in your life, it's probably because of people you're hanging out with. But if you're not seeing that, you want something more, and we don't have people around us, like I said earlier, then I like how your book takes people from one level and it helps them think, okay, well, maybe this is true. Okay, maybe now this is true. And so it unlocks a lot of inspiration, but not only that, but questions that we may have didn't realize we have. Because if we have that barrier, the world has taught us that we can't go beyond a certain level, either our finances or education, all of that. It's important to realize that all that is a falsehood. All that is just something that people just don't really care at times, and so don't really teach us. But I'm glad to hear that your book will really help people kind of look through the methodology of how to rethink, how to repurpose, how to ask questions, how to find that curiosity about life, and allows them to become something greater than they were before. So I'm really looking forward to my viewers and listeners being a part of this and reading your book. Unfortunately, Dennis, our time is up. If my viewers and listeners want to find out more information about you and to purchase your book, Real Impact, Daily Inspirations, where will they find this information online?
Go to realimpactbook.com, or they can just go to Amazon and type in my name or Real Impact Daily Inspiration. You could even go to Google and just type in, and there's hundreds of pages there. So it's not hard to find if you want one.
Excellent. My viewers and listeners also know if they can't find this information any other place, simply go to the show notes at jamesmillerlifeology.com, and I'll link you with Dennis and all of his information, as well as his book, Real Impact Daily Inspirations. Dennis, thank you so much. I appreciate all your time and energy.
Well, thank you for having me.